Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. I hope you're all having really nice weeks. So it is that time of the year once again, my friends. This year's book along list has been announced. As I did last year, I'm going to make a book along list reaction video today. I'm going to talk you through all of the books that have made it onto this year's long list. I'm going to start by talking about the ones that I've already read, then talk about the ones that I'm least interested in, working up to the ones that I'm most excited about. And then I will hopefully be doing some review type videos soon as well, just as soon as I've read some more of the books on the list. So generally, I really like the look of this year's list. There are a few books on here that I'm not surprised to see on here at all, and I'm really happy I've made it. And there are quite a few books that I haven't heard of before either that sound really intriguing to me, so that's always good. There are a couple of books that I am surprised didn't make this year's list, but overall, I think it looks like a really good mix. There seems to be some really cool styles and some really interesting themes. So overall, I'm really excited to dive in. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is Lost Children Archive by Valeria Luiselli. So this book is about a mother and father who go on a road trip across America with their two children, and I actually DNF'd this one. I just didn't get on with this book at all. It didn't hook me at all. I was quite confused about what was going on, and I just wasn't enjoying it at all. To be honest, I don't really think I picked this book up at the right time. I wasn't in a very good mental health place at the time, and I just don't think my head was ready for this book. So depending on how fast I get through all of the other books on this list, perhaps I will give this another go at some point, because I know everybody is absolutely raving about it. There must be something amazing about this book, but I just couldn't see it at the time. The next book on the list is My Sister, the Serial Killer by Ayinkan Braithwaite. This novel is set in Nigeria, and it follows our protagonist whose sister makes a habit out of killing her boyfriends. Our protagonist then decides that she needs to put a stop to her sister's killing streak when she starts dating a colleague of hers who she's liked for a really long time. So I loved this novel when I read it. I absolutely devoured it. I found it to be really engrossing and really addictive and a massive page turner. I enjoyed reading about the characters. I thought the writing was a real strength of the novel. It was very sharp and clear and witty, and the book does explore some interesting themes as well, such as gender dynamics. But overall, I just thought this was a really fun read more than anything else. I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to a lot of people, but I didn't think it was amazing. I am slightly surprised to see it on this list, if I'm honest. I don't know if it's quite Booker long list worthy, but there you go. The next book that made it onto the list is Quixote by Salman Rushdie. All I know about this one is that it is a modern day retelling of Don Quixote. That's it. On the surface, this doesn't really sound like a book for me. I have never read Don Quixote. I've never been interested in reading Don Quixote. The only thing attracting me to this one is that it is written by Salman Rushdie. I've never read any Salman Rushdie, but I really do want to at some point. I've heard that his writing is very unique and quite magical and absurd, and that intrigues me. There are other Salman Rushdie novels that appeal to me more than this one does, but who knows, if this one goes down a storm and everyone is saying really good things about it, then perhaps this will be my first Salman Rushdie. The next book on the list is An Orchestra of Minorities by Chigozie Obioma. This is a retelling of the Odyssey, and it tells a story of a Nigerian poultry farmer who saves a woman from jumping off a bridge, and he ends up falling in love with her. And then I think a lot of bad things happen. There are a few things that attract me to this novel. So Chigozie Obioma is a writer who's been on my radar for a while now, ever since they made it onto the book along list a few years ago. I do also like the sound of the themes explored here. I like books that explore people's social standing and fractious relationships, and I have heard this described as a heart-wrenching epic, which is so up my street. But the main thing that turns me off this book is the fact that my boyfriend Cameron read it a few months ago, and he really didn't like it. If I remember correctly, he used the word pretentious, which isn't a great start, and he just didn't think there were that many really good things going on in the book. So we will have to see on this one. I'll be really interested to see how other people are finding it, and then perhaps at some point I'll pick it up. The next book on the list is Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellmann. So this book sounds odd. I think it's going to be pretty divisive in terms of the responses to it. In fact, it already is really. People are already saying, this sounds amazing, you must read it, and some people are going, no, this isn't for me at all. I believe this book is about past and present America and explores all sorts of things from school shootings to parent-child relationships to environmental disasters. It is told from the perspective of a woman who is making cherry pies, and I believe the whole book is essentially just a 1,000-page list of all of her anxieties. For me, this sounds very intriguing. I love trying out novels that are experimentally written, and this definitely sounds experimental. I wouldn't really know what to expect going into this one, but I think it is something that I would really like to try out. I would like to make sure that I am in a good mental health place before diving into this one, because it does sound as though it could be quite anxiety inducing and claustrophobic. So I can't see myself prioritizing this one over some of the others on the list, but it's definitely got me hooked and I'm really excited to hear people talking about it. The next book on the list is The Man Who Saw Everything by Deborah Levy. This novel is set in the 1980s and I believe it follows our protagonist who goes to communist East Berlin to do some research. I believe this book is about Europe and transgressions and history and power, as well as discussing beauty and envy and questioning the sexual and political binaries of gender. So I'm definitely intrigued by Deborah Levy as an author. I never got around to reading her other novel, Hot Milk, so I'm definitely open to reading this one. Going off its premise, this novel doesn't necessarily scream my name, but I think it could explore some really interesting themes, especially the breaking down of the gender binary. That is so interesting to me, really important, and I believe the author actually comes at it from a few different angles. So I'm definitely interested in picking this one up at some point. Next is Night Boat to Tangier by Kevin Barry. I believe this novel opens in a ferry terminal in Spain and it focuses on two older Irish men who are drug smugglers. That is basically all I know. I've heard that it explores themes of violence and love and betrayal, and I think it sounds awesome. One of my favourite things about the Booker Prize is that every year it teaches me about books that I wouldn't have heard of before and books that discuss different lifestyles and cultures to the ones I have lived. It is so good for that. And this is definitely a book that I wouldn't normally be drawn towards. It sounds very different to the stuff I usually read. I've heard that it's quite sad and beautiful and lyrically written, and for whatever reason I am massively drawn towards this one, so I'm excited to give it a go. The next book on the list is Lonnie by Max Porter. This book is absolutely huge at the moment. It is everywhere, so I'm not surprised at all to see it on this list. This book is set in a small English town when a young boy called Lonnie goes missing. I believe legend plays a large role in this book, and throughout the novel you don't know if things from the legend are real or if they're just part of the boy's imagination. I have read Max Porter's other book, Grief is a Thing with Feathers, and I really enjoyed it. I found it to be a very evocative and emotional and unique book. I think that Max Porter is definitely a very interesting and talented writer. So I am very excited for this book. I expect to see all of Max Porter's strengths in here as well. I expect it's going to be very mysterious and beautiful. I did hear that this book is slightly easier to follow than Grief is a Thing with Feathers, which is definitely a good thing. I did find that some of that book went a little bit over my head. I believe this book has a bit more of a clear narrative structure and it doesn't rely so much on knowledge of other works of literature, which is all good. I've already heard so many amazing things about this one and I can't wait to try it out for myself. The next book on the list is The Wall by John Lanchester. This book is set on an island in a time that is very similar to our own, and on this island a large wall has been built around the island's borders. I believe the protagonist of this novel is called a defender, and it is his job to protect his portion of the wall from what they call others. This is a book that sounds really intriguing to me, and that is quite surprising. I don't really tend to read dystopians or be drawn towards dystopians, but for some reason this one has me. And don't get me wrong, there isn't really anything massively amazing about the premise of this novel. If anything, it's pretty transparent, but it would seem I'm in the mood to read something like this. As with all dystopian novels, I expect this book will be tackling a lot of the prevalent issues that we're facing today. I hear it explores themes of political division and survival and fear and love. I think this could be a really powerful and thought-provoking and emotive book that also has a really engaging storyline if it's done well. The next book on the list is Frankie Stein by Jeanette Winterson. This is the book that I have been so excited to read ever since I first heard about it a few months ago, so I'm so happy to see it on this list. So there is a lot going on in this book, I believe. So we have a transgender doctor who's falling in love with a professor who's leading the debate in AI. There is a divorced man who is making a new generation of sex dolls. There is a warehouse in Arizona that is full of dead bodies who are waiting to come back to life. And we also have Mary Shelley in 1816 writing about a non-biological life form. This book just sounds like it has so many interesting elements. I love the debate surrounding AI, and this book sounds like it takes a really interesting and fun look at it. I also hear that it explores gender and misogyny and philosophy and society. I expect this is going to be really intelligent and probably quite satirical, and I think it sounds genius. Also, Jeanette Winterson is just an incredible author. I've read her novels in the past and really enjoyed them, so I'm interested to see what she is writing nowadays. The next book on the list is The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. This is another one that I'm not surprised to see on this list at all. It is probably the biggest release of the year. As you all probably know, this is the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. I believe it takes place 15 years after the end of the previous novel, and it's told from the perspective of 3 female narrators. I loved The Handmaid's Tale when I read it for the first time a few years ago, so naturally I'm very excited for this. I'm actually going to be rereading The Handmaid's Tale soon with Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction. She's hosting a read-along in the first week of September, I think, so if you want to reread The Handmaid's Tale or read it for the first time, then please join us. This book is just going to be huge and I cannot wait. The penultimate book on the list is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardin Evaristo. I am so excited for this one. It basically sounds like my perfect book, and I'm so happy that I have now discovered it. This is a contemporary literary fiction novel that focuses on the lives and struggles of 12 different characters, mainly women who are black and British. It's about modern Britain and black femininity and family and sexuality and class and loads more. This book just has so many elements that I absolutely love in literary fiction. Multiple characters with different storylines, tick. A focus on female characters, tick. Chunky, so you can really get to know the characters and live their lives with them, tick. It's a very good start. I just love the sound of this book. It sounds so up my street. I think it's going to be so kick-ass and thought-provoking. This is a very high priority for me to get to. And the final book on the list, the one that I am most excited about, is 10 minutes 38 seconds in this strange world by Elif Shafak. This novel tells the story of our protagonist Leela, who for 10 minutes 38 seconds after her death shares with us different memories. These include the birth of her son, the taste of spiced goat stew, working in a brothel, attending mosque, and each memory also mentions a different friend that she made along the way. So I love Elif Shafak. I read 3 Daughters of Eve last year on a recommendation from my friend Laura, and she smashed that recommendation. I loved that book. I love her rich and vivid settings. I love her exploration of culture. I love her philosophical musings, and I just love the feeling of compassion that her writing exudes. I've wanted to read more by Elif Shafak ever since I read 3 Daughters of Eve, so I'm so happy that she's just brought this novel out and that it's made this list. She's just a wonderful writer, and I think this is going to be amazing. I'm very excited. So there we go. Those are all the books on this year's Booker long list in my order of excitement. Please let's talk about the long list down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to know your guys' thoughts on it. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's exciting? Do you think it's shit? Have you read any of the books? Have you enjoyed them? Which ones are you most excited to get to? Please tell me all down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you. It means a lot. I hope you're all doing well, and I'll speak to you soon, and I'll see you next week with a new video. Bye everyone.